Hey, welcome
Hey guys.
for another episode of Unfiltered and Intentional. This is going to be a really good topic,
Saucy.
a
Yes.
saucy, juicy topic. um, I'm just putting a disclaimer out here right now that it may run over just a tad bit because when I did the topic, my brother Charles at the bottom was like, "Oh, I got to jump on this." That's Mr. History right there, Mr. Historian. And then me and Cash constantly get into debates about who's black, who ain't black, who can claim the black card. Can you say the N word? Can you not say the N word?
Right.
No, represent me. I don't care how dark they are. It's just a whole controversy. I hope we can get somewhere and go from there. But once again, I'm just giving that little disclaimer. Thanks again for taking that time out and reaching out. I know for some people that are in the South, school is starting back up. So
Tomorrow's the first day of school.
yeah, so for those people that are starting school and their kids, definitely have a great year, and we can go from there. All right. So today's topic, and thank you, Liz, for basically uh, coming up with the title, Black or Blackish. Who gets to decide? Because at the end of the day, I don't like the fact how
Hmm.
people are so hooked up on
Ah,
some people are hooked up on color, and people cannot use or claim the word black, and they have to meet all these criterias just so that they can say, hey, I am black.
mhm.
um Before I get my opinions in, before anything, definitely Liz, we're going to do ladies first, then work our way down to Charles and then Cass. So first off, how passionate are you about this topic? That's We're going to start off right there. Something slow. We're going to work our way in for the people who are tuning in.
That is the opposite of slow, Kia. Oh my gosh. So, first of all, you know what? I will say this. I think it's fascinating how much this topic has evolved just from when we were children to where we are now, right? Because I remember back in the day, they would say, if you have one drop of black in you, you're black. I don't care what you say. You guys remember that?
Mhm.
Now it's just like, well, how black are you? 50%, 60%? I don't know. You look kind of white to me. So I don't know. I don't know when we transition from one to the next, but in terms of how important it is to me, I will tell you this: it's one of the issues that have resonated loudly in my life. Actually, funny enough, the was that one, two, three, third comment that came in this evening is story of my life. So,
Liz is Blackish. That's what the comment came in and said.
right?
Explain that. So you're basically, so what this comment, reading it as that you got a little bit of black, but you claiming black. Now, what are you, Liz? Let the audience know. What are
Ooh.
you claiming?
Okay, so it's a whole mix. It's a mesh of stuff, right? And so each of my grandparents were from someplace different. So I have one grandfather that he is British from the Cayman Islands, right? So he was one of the Cayman Islands. His parents are British before that. His wife was 100% Mosquito Indian, which is a Central American native, right? My other grandfather is from Jamaica. That's the one I grew up with that I knew. And he would, the very first time I ever met him, I must have had the look of a child that's never seen somebody as dark as him because that was what I was experiencing. And he
Mhm.
goes, I know, I'm black as the ace of spades. That was literally how he introduced himself to me. And his wife, who I never met, my other grandmother, was German and Mosquito Indian. So, and there's some debate about that. Some people say Indian, some people say black in my own family because it's cooler to be anything but black.
Of course. Unfortunately.
Unfortunate, you have to kind of know that about your history even when you're putting those disclaimers out there. So even my Cayman Island English grandfather has very, very black features, but he would only ever speak to the English side of his family tree. But looking at him,
So you were born where, Liz?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
You were born Brooklyn, New York.
Hey,
Wait, calm down, calm down. It's not that show. because me and Charles are from someplace else in New York, so just calm down. Uh, we can't hear you, Charles. We can't hear you. I think you're muted. What'd you say?
So yeah, Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Both my parents were born in Nicaragua. So I'm first generation American. My parents were both first generation Nicaraguan. And then before that, which is why I skipped to my grandparents, because I mean, it seems almost irrelevant where you were actually born. It has more to do with your lineage, in my
Oh,
esteem.
okay. So
So, yeah.
when somebody asks, so when you're filling out an application and they say, "What are you identifying with?" Are you saying that you are Hispanic, you're black, you're this? What are you claiming?
I put black and Hispanic.
So Afro Latina?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And has anybody ever questioned that?
Every day.
And are they now when they question that, are they saying or what are they saying like where you what part of you is black? I don't understand. You was born in Nicaragua, like like or born in
You,
Brooklyn, but your parents are from there. Like what are they questioning?
I would say more recently, since I've been I'd say in the working world, what I get a lot of is, I'll know somebody for months, even years sometimes, and then they'll hear me speak Spanish and they'll go, "What? I thought you were black." And I'm like, does speaking Spanish make me less black or not black? I'm confused because there are all kinds of black Hispanic people.
Okay. So
Um,
just to
yeah.
bring the rest of the crew in,
Uh-huh.
Charles, the reason why I wanted you in
I
because
also had no idea you could speak Spanish.
well,
FYI.
you know her for like 35 years. And I mean, what long as let's go, we're gonna mute him and we're gonna go back to Charles. But that was weird. But Charles, I brought you in because when it comes to history, you're definitely that history guru. And we talk about it all the time about how the words certain words should not be used in reference to how we identify to ourselves.
Right.
And you speak about this all the time very passionately. And words have powerful meaning behind them. So
Hmm.
it's definitely something that you've always said, hey, we got to stop calling ourselves these certain things. With
Hmm.
that being said, the question I want to ask you is even though you, Liz, Cash, yourself, we can call ourselves whatever, society, when you fill out the paperwork, when they're saying, hey, what are you? How do we get the establishment to change how people view each other? If, I mean, it seems like there's no going back. This is what it is. You either black, Latin, this, like, how do you get the society to change that?
Okay, so at one particular point in time, if you were Chinese, if you were Japanese, if you were Vietnamese, you were called Oriental, and you were given a color, and the color was yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And we all called, even to this day, our own mother will still refer to East Asian people as Orientals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she's conditioned to say.
Hmm.
An Oriental is a rug. All right. It's you know, and if you were to call a Chinese person yellow, they would be offended.
Yes.
How do they stop? Why do we adhere to calling them by their actual either the continent that they're from, which is Asia, right? Because a Russian is in Asia. We don't call Russians Asians. We typically call East Asian people Asian, right? The Middle Easterns, they're Asian, but we don't call them Asian. We call them Middle Eastern. But we
Mm-hmm.
refer to a geographical region out of respect because that's what they want.
Hmm.
We don't refer to them as a color. Why? Because that's what they want. They understand the power of colonialism. They understand the power of someone naming you. They understand that power. So they made as a community here in the United States, they made a strong standpoint during the 80s. Do not call me yellow. And they correct it every single time. So they actually have their non-governmental groups like their versions of the NAACP. They have their non-for-profit organizations that are designed to do advocacy within the community. And they made a stand. You will not call me yellow. All right. Same thing for Native Americans. All right. We don't refer to them as red.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Redskins, they had to change their name from Redskins to Commanders, which I think is a stupid name either. But listen, it's what it is. Okay. But the fact remains is the native indigenous population of the United States, the first nation, the first people that were here, decided they will not allow a foreign power, Europeans, aka white people, to name them. Because they realize that if you allow someone to name you like a dog, they now have mastery over you.
So for people who are descendants of slaves, African Americans that are descendants of slaves, technically speaking, I guess they would be considered African American for the simple fact that they are American and they're descendants from Africa, correct?
If you want to go by geographical location, so people ask me geographically if they like people actually where Liz's background, I would say I am of African, European, and Native American ancestry, and that's all provable by genetics. Okay, but that would be my actual ancestry. There's a difference between ancestry versus culture. Okay, there's a difference between a race, which is a made up social construct, versus the ethnicity or the culture that you grew up in. So, for example, a lot of there's a comedian by the name of Godfrey, and you'll see him making his little commentary, whatever, talking about Dominicans. I'm not black. I'm not black. And he does very very patronizing and very insulting little comedic little routines. Okay, Dominicans do not view blackness in the same way that we do. We say black. It's your race. This is what we are. We're black. It's your skin color, black. And you're from Africa, black and black and black and black. And they're like, oh, listen, that's your culture. Your culture is Black American. My culture is Dominican. Okay.
But
So
I
and
don't,
over
but do you
here,
even hear? I know when Godfrey, I know you mentioned Godfrey and Cash. I'll get to you in a second. But when you mentioned Godfrey and he does the little interviews with different people, just kind of hearing what they had to say, when he does, for the ones I've heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard some Dominican, I don't hear the Dominicans say, I'm actually Afro Latina. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is.
why do they have to be? They are Dominican. Okay, the racial and the racial impact that occurred here, the brainwashing that occurred here in the United States, is totally different from what happened in Puerto Rico
Well, you
and
said
what
something
happened
about
in
why do they
DR.
have to be? What when you said why do they have to be? My
Why do they
question,
have to?
well, my question for that would be, and of course, because some people don't believe in their taking DNA tests. They're like, hey, it's a sham,
Right,
it's a sham. But for those who do, a lot of people see that in the Latin culture period that they have all type. They have the Indian, they
right,
have
yeah, that's
African,
correct.
and then all of a sudden they're surprised, like, wait, what? Because their skin may be paler. I
It
mean, I've
depends.
seen them not claim it. Like, I've really
That's
seen.
yeah, and I've seen the exact opposite. I've seen a lot of people claim it. My one of my oldest friends is Dominican, Henry. He's always admitted he had African ancestry.
Mm,
And he's admitted that since he was 7 or 8. My wife is Dominican. She's always admitted her African ancestry.
okay.
So has her father. So has her mother.
Just
Okay.
to bring just to bring cash in real quick. So tell me real quick, what made me even want to do this, have this conversation, Cash, was for the simple fact that Kamala Harris announces that, hey, I'm stepping in for Biden. We're going to rock and roll. And then you have I've heard a lot of black men say, or they post, she's not black. You know what she did to these black men? She's representing her Indian culture. I don't, a matter of fact, even the Jamaican father that she had is not claiming his Jamaican ancestry. He's talking about he got some East Indian, something happening over there. And then I was mentioning to Liz, and then Liz was like, well, what about the beef between Kendrick and Drake? And I found it like really interesting because I'm like, yeah, like, why is it that there's this thing within our culture? We pick and choose when it's accepted to represent and when not. So right now you have Drake, who's a multi-millionaire, and he's making all the songs, and people like this one, whatever the case may be. They got some rapper beef going on, and then all of a sudden he's blasting him. He said he's not a collie, he's a freaking colonizer,
Mm-hmm.
and just basically calling him out, knowing that Drake is biracial.
Right.
Drake's father is darker than me, but for whatever reason, we're completely forgetting. And then all of a
Kendrick is
sudden,
biracial. If you want to take it for that matter,
you said he is.
Kendrick's biracial. Cash is biracial. You're biracial.
Well, you're going like,
Every single African American in this entire country is biracial. It's called rape.
but
Your
why is
ancestors were raped and on
that
the
is
slave
true?
ship in the
But
slave ports. And guess what? You have other than non-African genetics in your body.
that is
Sorry,
true. But
African Americans. Sorry, black people.
what,
You got white in you.
that is true. But with that being said, why do you think now, Cash? Do you believe that when it's convenient, we make an issue of it? So right now we just letting Drake pass and we dancing to his songs, and then all of a sudden like, oh, you're not even black, you're white. You don't get to talk about our topics. Wait, Kamala. I mean, I know you. You know, you was over there, and you're one of the Divine Nine, and you look kind of brown, but now, you all Indian. I seen you with that Asari. Like, why is it we pick and choose who we want to talk about? Is it like a popular thing? What's going on?
Well, I would say this. Part of the issue is to first begin having a conversation about blackness. And I think that this is where the media has failed, the whole entire conversation, and where things have tend to fall apart is, first of all, you got to define black. Define black, and then I'll tell you whether or not someone's black.
Hmm.
Without that, like, okay, ask me if somebody's a firefighter. Okay, well, what sort of certifications or whatever does the state have? And then I'll tell you whether or not that this person is a firefighter or not. So that is step one. So when it comes to Kamala Harris, and so in the term black, uh, prior to the Immigration Act of 1965, pretty much all immigration to the United States, over 90 something percent, was from Europe. You could not even come to America prior to 1965. And really, if you wasn't European, I don't think you wanted to come to America prior to
That
1965.
part. Right. That
Yeah.
part.
So in Europeans who have been dominating the world for the last 1,000+ years or whatever, they have named most things and put most things in little neat boxes where they can identify and how they want. And so America was black and white. You had black people and you had white people. And
Hmm.
that was pretty much it up until 1965. Black people and white people, almost all the black people that were here were from slavery, where they brought them over in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, fast forward 40, 50 years now, those same boxes doesn't really uh, do us any service in trying to describe our very complicated situation that we find ourselves in current day. Current day, America, we went from 1965 about 10 million immigrants to 70 something million immigrants over this time period. So it's a lot more people, and just trying to say, oh, these people are this and these people are that. Yeah, for dominant society, it's helpful for them to just kind of say Hispanics and lump them all together, when really we know that there's a huge difference between a Mexican and a Cuban in
Huge.
all kinds of ways. Food, music, culture, politics, all of it. They've
Not the
got
same thing. Right.
completely different experience.
Right. But there's also a lot of similarities as well.
Yeah, there's also a lot of similarities as well. And the thing is, when you come to these different groups, these groups should be able to define themselves on their terms. They should be able to accept or reject as they see fit. They should be able to make coalitions with other groups. If the Cubans and the Mexicans is like, hey, we want to, as a bigger Hispanic coalition, do ABC, XYZ, and they feel like it makes sense, then fine. And so I think, as far as black people, if you want to say black being anybody of African, you know, descent, we have to sort of
Well,
realign everything. And, how
I'm gonna,
what's the current rules or
I'm gonna get to the
agreements as far as us working together?
I'm gonna get to the comments, but I just wanted to say this one little tad bit. So it's interesting because Coach Charles was talking about the history and stuff like that, and you started bringing some history points in as well. But the word black became from what I'm perceiving, and of course you could correct me, became very popular during the civil rights movement. In the '60s, and I'm black and I'm proud, and that's the cool thing. I'm wearing my beret to the side, my afro's getting picked out, and the more you embrace this black, because I guess it's like they took a negative word, just like you're hanging out with your homegirl, like that's my bitch, like no, she's not really a bitch, but you just embrace it and you
So
bring
I
it.
would say this, Kia.
Or the N word.
So
Yeah,
so
the N word too,
yeah.
and we're gonna go to that. We're gonna go to that. But no, no, no.
So I would say this, just as far as a definition. So Kamala Harris, if you were to say that, black people in America who descended from slavery in America, let's call them African Americans, right? Uh, to make it easy. Kamala Harris is not an African American. She's Jamaican American and Indian American. You know, um, is she black? Black,
But
black
I
meaning.
think that
Hold on,
I
black
think
meaning
that thin
does she
line, and I
have
promise to get to the
African?
comments. I
Well,
think that
here's the
She is
deal.
black.
If you consider
African American.
Lena Horne,
That's pretty
everyone
easy.
here would consider Lena Horne to be black or African American. That is almost the exact same breakdown of Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, she has predominantly African ancestry. On the other side, she has predominantly another group.
but I think
Lena Horne down the middle was 50-50. But no one here and not one person here in America would dare say Lena Horne is not part of the African
but that's
American
what I was
black
gonna say.
community.
I think when people talk about Black Current 2024, they talk about the culture, meaning, are you doing the things, whatever
I mean, so do
society.
we need to also define African American? Because I'm thinking African
Let's get to the
American is
wait,
a
wait,
pretty
wait, wait. Let's
easy
get to the I
sort of
promise to
thing.
get to the
Like either
I
you
promise.
have
Wait,
parents or grandparents that
wait,
descend from
wait,
America, or
wait.
you do not.
We
See,
lost Cash.
time
That's
out.
pretty easy.
I see for time out. Go ahead, Liz.
Okay. I think we have to go back just a little bit before that. And a couple of people chimed in and said good evening.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, we're skipping through some of it. So Nero started out that black culture can be a funny thing. Expanding on that, I feel that Brown came about to alienate themselves from black as they knew there was a difference. Can you provide clarification on that or correct me?
I
I
think
think
that's
he was
what
talking
Charles was
about with
talking.
regard to the Middle Eastern people or the, everything else. Like everybody kind of wants to separate themselves somehow from being black, right? So
Mm-hmm. And then,
um, let's see. And then we had Adele chime in. Hello, everyone. Both my parents were born in the Dominican Republic and I was born in the United States. I consider myself Dominican American with African ancestry, 40%, which is close to the percentage my husband is. And then Nero said, I guess Barack is white as well, too, then.
well, here's the
Barack
thing.
Obama is
Wait,
Indian
so here's the thing.
American
And I
and white.
wait.
Oh, now we
He's
lost
Indian
Charles.
American
We
and
got Cash on fire.
Oh, wait. So hold on. Okay, so here's the thing. I really honestly think that when it's cool to be black, meaning the culture, everybody wants a piece of it. I mean, Kim Kardashian can exploit it.
white.
The rappers, whoever, they got their hands in it, and we're able to share the goodies to anybody, so they can get some of the money on our backs. But then, like he stated, he talked about, hey, there's somebody, they wanted to separate the brown from the black, because when it comes to money, though, and you see that, wait a second, now who's hiring and who's not, it does seem that we will placate, not per se everybody, but certain people will say, yeah, actually, I'm not all the way black. I have 30% of this, and the rest of me is this. I remember growing up, and everybody in the school had Indian blood in them. I mean, there was no such thing as a DNA test for the little
Cherokee,
kid.
yeah, Cherokee.
Yeah, everybody had Cherokee. Did you see how my hair laid back? And nobody wanted to be black.
That's
It
called
was just,
Irish. They had Irish in them.
yeah, but whatever the case may be, nobody wanted to be. No one was claiming.
Slave master.
Well,
But
because they're ignorant. That's the whole point. The
but
problem is they're ignorant.
But once again, when it's the music, the latest dance, the sayings, the clothing, the this and that, everybody claims it. Then everybody wants a
Well,
piece of the culture.
even that statement that you're making, whatever, is totally 100% freaking wrong. It's
Mm,
wrong, and here's the reason why.
go ahead.
Okay, the five race theory was created by white people,
Mm-hmm,
and they put themselves at top.
mm-hmm,
Okay, they're the ones who said the entire world. The guy's name is Johann Blumenbach. He was
mm-hmm,
he's considered the grandfather of anthropology. He's the person who divided the entire world into five races. And the Europeans, after they literally conquered the entire planet, literally said, "You are one of these five races, and you are." And Negroes, blacks, the Negroid is at the bottom.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and they instill that into you, and they instill that into you to the point wherever you get to the point wherever, okay, you literally at the conclusion of slavery here in the United States, and keep in mind slavery ended in other places way further than
Mm-hmm.
earlier than it did here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but just speaking here in the United States, okay, the only time that Africans who were enslaved here in the United States, okay, were essentially freed to be able to develop an actual true culture was not until 1964 to begin with, when they signed the Civil Rights Act, which gave meat and potatoes to the 14th Amendment, to the 13th Amendment. All prior to that, whatever, you didn't even have a true culture, because anything and everything that African Americans did post Civil War was heavily condemned, controlled, and monitored by the former enslavers. So
Sure.
you can't really have a culture when when you move two steps to the left, whatever, two steps to the right, and you're being told what you
Well,
can and cannot do.
when I meant culture, I was meaning culture, the scraps that we get to put together, we get to piece together. For instance, right now, people watch the b-boy, the breakdancing in the Olympics. I mean,
Right,
we all know where it came from. We know
right.
from the struggles and this and
Is
this.
there a such thing as an African American, like as a distinct,
Whose fault is that? With break,
like as a
that's our
distinct
fault.
separate group? Is there a such thing as an African American?
There is such a thing as African American. Actually, let me jump in there, right? And this notion that blackness has to do with the culture rather than actually being black. I think that that's a mistake, and I also think that a bigger mistake that we're making as a whole is divvying up blackness, right? Because again, we're greater together. Divided, you know what I mean? You divide and conquer. So the more that we get caught up in, well, I'm a black this or a black that, I'm a black from Asia or black whatever, right? Because here's the thing: is if I think in the message that I sent out today, people were like, Idris Elba gets lumped in with that. Idris Elba
I
was born
was
in
shocked
London.
when you said that. Not
Right. He was born in London. He's an Englishman. Tell me he's not black, right? And by the way, if Idris Elba got pulled over and Cash got pulled over by the same racist cop, he don't care what kind of black you are. He doesn't care that you're black from London or black from Brooklyn or black from the South. Black is black, right? And
But you're ascribing to a social construct of European
but the
domination,
cop is
and the
still going
very
to treat
fact
you
that
the
you're
same
even
way.
utilizing the word shows that you're systemized.
But the
But,
cop is.
but I would say, even if we set aside the word black, even if we set aside the word black, and understanding that the commonality between me and Idris Elba is the fact that we both have
Africans.
African ancestry. I
Mhm.
I will 100%, as far as all people who have African ancestry are this one thing. Whatever you want to call that one thing, you,
That's what
you
I'm
can call
saying.
that one thing.
Okay, then
Which
how are you
really,
going to call it exactly one thing? Okay, there's an entire fucking world out there, a world. Stop thinking that this little crappy little nation that we live in, whatever, controls the narrative or whatever of what a person of African descent is.
What?
It does. We
no,
don't.
I mean, a person of
That's
African
pure
descent
fucking arrogant.
is just clearly anyone who descended from African people. That's a pretty straightforward and clear. That's a fact. That's not really even an opinion. What I'm saying is that there's distinctions. There's people who have descended from African people, which are all over the world. In Brazil, all over the world. Then there are specific, there are Haitians, there are Jamaicans, there are, Senegalese, There are people from the Congo, Congolese. All of these people are distinct and separate people and have, right now you just had Sudan and South Sudan finish a civil war. Which now you have, as of about 10 years ago, a new country called South Sudan. The idea that everybody who descends from Africa, whether or not you are in Brazil or you're in America or you're in Canada or you're in Britain, that all these people, I understand that commonality, the coming from Africa thing, but they're also are all of these people are also distinct people. And so I think that when people say like, oh, this one is this or this one is not that, if you say, oh, does Drake have African ancestry? 100% Drake is of African ancestry. If you ask me, is Drake African American ancestry? Drake has one parent who is 100% African American from America, which would, make him, in essence, an African American. There were other, knocks, I think, that really were at play with his situation.
Mm-hmm.
But, as far
Let
as,
me let me get to the comments. Let me get to the comments and I'll bring Liz in after that.
Okay. So Nero says everyone wants to act black, but no one wants to be black. For example, Justin Bieber. A good song to check out is White Privilege 1 and 2 by Macklemore. So, for a fact, and then he chastised us, so we have to stop talking over each
Well, I
other.
was going to say, well, sorry, this is a very passionate topic. We're sorry. Before you jump in, Liz, real quick, I just want to say that it's interesting because words are very, very powerful. And you made a good point, Charles, about somebody naming you and then now they're owning you and then it goes on and on and on and you just riding with it, and there's other nations within that saying, hey, you don't call us this. Like you gave the example of Native American Indians, don't call us red and this, and they're changing logos and people protest, hey, we don't want change. And for the Asian people and this, and it is very hard. I guess if you're used to something, we say, and I like to use the scenario of, I mean, I know all of you guys pretty well. And me knowing you guys, I've seen when we're all in a social setting, if you let loose for a little bit. And the word, like I'm gonna just use the word, bitch for a second. If I call Liz, yo, that is my bitch, she knows that I'm not meaning anything derogatory by that. I've seen, and you guys, both of you guys, if you're singing a song and a rap song, when the song is like, oh yeah, my nigga, y'all don't, oh yeah, my blank, and then continue, y'all going right along with it. So
I do.
Well,
I do.
I'll say there have been times that I have seen you say the word. So even though you're doing it now, there have been, I've known you all my life. So with that being
Oh, when
said,
I was 19, maybe. Okay, I'm
well,
50.
we won't go into the date or whatever. But my whole point is, when situations occur, we do sometimes use words very loosely, and we do, still try to fix it up. If I say, "Hey, you guys, my friends," do I really know a person for 1 month, make them my friend? No, but we know that we just use that word arbitrarily
As a
instead of
generality.
calling them an associate or whatever the case may be. How do you think, Liz, we can get past the semantics of the BS? Because I think that is such a divisional. The conversation itself is just so divisive.
It
One
is.
person feels this way, other person feels this way, other one's like you're crazy, other one's like this, and we're so busy like this. And I know Nero said it. He mentioned Barack. At the end of the day, how I look at it, if Barack was driving down the street, the racist guy in Midwest is gonna be like, you know what, nigga? Freeze, put your hands up, boo, 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 boo. And you can't sit there and say, hey, you called me something I'm not. Well, let me politically tell you about the do. They're gonna still be faced with the same thing that everybody else faced with because the color of our skin. I mean, you're shaking your head, Charles, but the color of skin to a racist
What
person.
relevance does that have of what you call yourself? That's the problem. That's the entire problem. This is why I get so frustrated dealing with the African American community. We're
Okay.
always concerned about what someone else thinks of us, what the white man wants to call us, what these people. What do we call ourselves?
So you
Okay,
could call, well,
I
wait,
refuse to even refer to myself in anything other than a positive light.
No, no.
So,
I'll use that scenario here. So right now you have your man. And if someone said, "Hey, boy," you'd be like, "Wait a second here. Don't disrespect me. You're not going to call me that, Mr. Policeman." But at the end of the day, that policeman's going to still treat you however his ignorant ass decides to treat you. So
and I've been arrested 3 times for fighting police officers. Okay, no criminal record. I guess I have good karma.
I mean, okay. So here's the thing, right? Regardless of what you want to call yourself, or accepting that someone else is calling you that or anything, what I'm trying to get at is that we all have a commonality. I think Cash and I, we kind of agree there, right? So across the board, we have a commonality, and it's funny because I'm going to go with Hispanic people, for example. Go anywhere where there's a lot of Spanish speaking people and say Latinos, and they go crazy, right? Nobody, I've never seen it anyway, ever, where they're like, no, I'm Mexican. No, I'm Panamanian. No, I'm like, it's weird, right? Because even people from Spain who are European are like Latinos, and they're in it to win it, right? All together. For some reason, I mean, even Asians, as far as the Asians that I've met, and I've met a few, they're Asians together, right? And it's not like I'm Filipino and I'm Chinese. I mean, they'll get mad if you
They
call a
do.
Chinese person Japanese, or if you call a Japanese person, something else. Then if you're getting specific and you're saying the wrong thing, then they will correct that. But if you tell an Asian person that they're Asian, nobody gets upset about it. Europeans, white people love to claim how white they are. They love being white. They almost never, until you get down to, okay, but where are your parents from? That's when they'll actually say, I'm Italian, or I'm German, or whatever it is. But you ask a white person if they're white and they say yes, they don't say, don't call me white. Oh, that's a us thing that that we resented or something. Like it's derogatory to call myself black. As Pia just mentioned, it came from say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. It was never when we say it, it's not meant to be derogatory, and it's nowhere near the same block as being a nigger or anything like that.
But
It's
that's
it's
not
an
where it came from.
easy
It
term.
came from Spanish enslavers. That's where it came from. And then the English adopted it, and it was English enslavers. And then it was American enslavers. So it's a word that's systematically been adopted from one colonizer, oppressive colonizer, to another oppressive colonizer, to another oppressive colonizer. Okay, and finally in the '60s, we're like, okay, I'm just gonna call myself black, and it's gonna be okay. No, you're still systemized. Okay,
So,
you're
so,
still
so,
a
so,
fucking
so, so,
slave.
so I'm gonna get to the comments. I'm gonna get to the comments, but I have to say this, and this is just my viewpoint. Once again, guys, please like and subscribe. There are certain topics on this thing that we get real passionate about. Everybody has their own little one when they do. But with that being said, when it comes to the word, because I've heard that word all my life, somebody's a systemized Negro, and I personally feel if you live in the United States of America, you have systemized. You're doing something forming in line when it came to something. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a social security card, you live in the United States of America, there's
Yes.
something that you have gotten in line
No,
with.
that's not what that means. Okay, being an American citizen, being assimilated into what America is, you have no choice in the matter.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
you can sit there and say, hey, I'm one of those sovereign nation people,
yeah.
whatever. Okay, all right, and you can try to live off the grid all you want to. Okay, but still the fact remains, whatever. Okay, there is society, and all societies have a certain rule. When we talk about systemized, it's talking about how you view yourself, how you pertain to yourself, your self-worth, your
Mhm.
self-dignity, okay, your self-esteem as a person, within your own, as an individual, and then within your family, and then within your own culture. That is what being systemized is. Okay, so if I'm going to sit there and I'm going to be like, yes, boss, you can call me a nigga like that, right? Then I'm systemized. Yes, boss, you can call me Negro. Then I'm systemized. If I sit there and say, yes, you can say that I'm black, because what? You said that I'm black, then what? Okay, you're systemized. Okay, our skin is not black. There is no one in Africa who has black skin. They range either from albino all the way to dark mocha chocolate. Okay, but they are not black,
Let me
I
go
think
ahead.
and that is
I
a
think
fact.
now we get to the next level of this is after we define, blackness and all these things, why is any of this important whatsoever?
So wait, before we ask that question, wait. Let's go to the comments. Though. That's a good
Okay.
question.
So Don Juanes chimed in. So based on the identity of African American culture, forgive my timing as I'm watching in delay. I work in a predominantly minority school in which young people, identify as their culture, but also predominantly identify as African American to have a combined and unified culture. Right here in America, in order for us to be heard, we need to be unified as a singular racial culture. The Asian community from where I live are all different cultures, but are all together to fight a shelter. I'm sure it's going to continue on from there.
So it's
And
interesting because it kind of coincides with what you said that from hey when I see Hispanics when they come together like hey Latina and they dance in the music and they just enjoying life, they don't break it down. Well, wait a second, what you mean Latina? She's Mexican and I'm Ecuadorian. We don't call me no Latina. You know what I'm
I've
saying?
never
They
seen that.
all repping and I
Right.
mean
Right, because that's there is external versus internal. Internal, I've seen it. My Puerto Rican friends and they're like, and they clown each other, whatever. It's all love, whatever. Okay, but okay, when they're dealing with anything outside of their own collective comfortable community, whatever. Yes, we're all Latino, we're all Hispanic, X, Y, and Z, and
Yeah.
and that's a great thing, whatever. Okay, here in the United States, it's significantly harder to do that. All right, because of the fact geographically there are different cultures within the larger American culture. Okay, and I'm not shucking and jiving like some Southern black, whatever. I'm sorry, it's not fucking happening. Okay,
so
so
let's finish
if they
the
want to go
comment.
ahead and get themselves together, whatever, then hey, then we can go ahead and maybe have an accord. But okay,
Let's let's go get finished that comments and then Cash, we'll get back to you what you were saying. That good question, OJ.
Alistair said, you can call yourself whatever you want. Perception is perception. So and then Adele chimed in. Trump's comment about Kamala Harris's ethnicity is such a vast issue. No one should question someone's ethnicity or culture.
You,
It's you know what? If I can, I'm jumping on that one, right? So here's the thing about questioning someone's ethnicity or culture, and even to what Cash was saying, like, why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because it's 2024 and race is still a driving factor. The reason that he wanted to bring up that now she has just become black, because that was fascinating to me, right? Is to remind people, even as they're getting all enthused about it and this, that, and the third, are you really going to sit there and vote for this black woman? Was Trump blowing his dog whistle, which is why we have to talk about it. But in terms of questioning someone's ethnicity or culture, we should be questioning that ourselves. We should know where we came from if we're going to have any idea of where we're going, right? And you have way too many people. I literally know people in my family that do everything that they can to hide their blackness or to cover it up or to be something else or anything. And I mean, what does that actually do if you don't know who you are or you won't own who you are for whatever reason? If we went with this whole, I'm not black thing, right? And so when OJ said it, that was a hurting thing to the community, right? When Tiger Woods kind of implied it in his way, that was a hurting thing to the community. As people watch Michael Jackson lighten his skin and straighten his hair, a lot of people, that hurt a lot of people, that you would hide your blackness, whether or not you were ever color black. And we're not
or
being
your brownness.
because they're weak,
yeah, you're
because
brown.
they're weak. Anytime an outside force has that much influence on you where you feel pain because they're denying something among yourself is a self-reflection of your own inner weakness.
No,
Well,
it's
we're gonna. Well. I'll say this. We'll say this as a fact. It is a scientific fact that because of racism, not racism, because of slavery,
mhm.
that has happened to our ancestors in the past, our DNA structure has changed. That's a
No, no,
scientific.
no, no, no. Our DNA. No.
That is
I'm gonna cut you off right there.
that's
Okay,
it.
do not lump all of us all in the
No,
same
no, 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 no,
category.
no, no. No.
Okay,
I'm not
do not.
saying every. Well, no, no, no.
Okay,
Let me reiterate then.
on both sides of my family, we're Freeman on both sides of the
No,
family,
no, 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 no.
and you're my sister.
Wait, let me reiterate then. What I mean, because of course not everybody was a slave. Not everybody that has African descent that came to America was an actual slave. So I'm
And
not
not
talking.
everybody
And
that has
not
part
all
black.
of us shucked and jived in the field
No, no,
and
no, no, no,
refused
no.
to pay the price.
I'm not
Some of
talking about
us
that
are
part.
descendants of those who fought back.
I'm not saying that we're not descendants of people who fought back, and we part of, sometimes some people weren't free and other. I'm just saying as a people, as a whole, there are a group of people, whoever that fits into, that the DNA structure has changed in reference to our flight and flight and all those different things, and how we deal with certain things. Of course, we could sit down on a whole nother time in a topic and break down the statistics. Well, we got 12% over here, 15% over here, but I'm just talking about as a whole. There's always going to be the one offs and the freedom fighters that led the way, or whatever the case may be. Just to bring Cash back in, you had a great question before we had got into the comments, and you said, "Why are we talking about this?" And can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yes. So, you know, the question of why are we talking about this is, why is this important? Why has this been an issue so much as of late? You know, why is it, coming up with these various people or whatever? And what it is that, so if in a vacuum, skin color means nothing. It means nothing. But we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist in a capitalistic political world.
Mhm.
Capitalism means competition by definition. So who's competing? Everybody. Choose your sides. So it was once a time where all of the black people in America was very easily able to be identified and able to identify what side they were going to be on. Because 90 something percent was on pretty much the same side when it came to abolishing slavery. Yeah, it was a few people, even back then, black people who benefited from the structure of slavery and, did not want to see it end. So you always had, a small piece of whatever. But for the most part, if you'd have went around and did polling, 90 something percent of black people wanted slavery to end. They had a shared destiny, a shared tie to each other, and that's why that was important. After that, you had Jim Crow, where there's this shared, sense of destiny and purpose. We're all going to this place together. Hey, come hell or high water, we gotta end Jim Crow because it's all black people and all white people, and Jim Crow is all bad for all black people. So it's a very easy calculus. Now you end Jim Crow, you have the Civil Rights Act, then you have the Immigration Act of 1965. Now you have some 70 million various immigrants in America from all over the world. And not all of our, views or goals or whatever are all in alignment as it was back then. Because the whole thing of, oh, black, oh, you're black or whatever, it meant that I could automatically assume certain things about you. I could automatically assume that you wanted to end slavery, and it would be a pretty good assumption. I could automatically assume that you wanted to end, Jim Crow, and that would be a pretty good assumption. But these days, to go around making assumptions on the fact that someone is black is just, is pretty outdated and ignorant. And honestly, even making a judgment on the fact that somebody's African American. Ben Carson, Clarence Thomas, Candace Owens is not African American. Let me
What?
pause. But, so what does it even matter if the person is, oh, what? If we prove Kamala Harris, if we were able to prove Kamala Harris was African American, what would that mean to us politically? Nothing really. We haven't really heard a policy roll out from her yet.
That is
When I'm going to make my decision on whether or not I'm going to vote is when I hear the policies roll out. Because you can't just, in this complex day and world, make an assumption that, oh, these people are in my camp and these people are on my side. And because these people fall under this label, they do this or, they do that, because the world is a lot more complicated than that. And it's a lot more competitive, and people are finding out
Well, I'm gonna get to the comments, but before I get to the comments, I want to say this one thing that you made a good point. Because these semantics of someone claiming a certain, oh, I'm African American, and you mentioned, you know, Candace Owens, and you mentioned, what's the
Clarence
one, the surgeon, yeah, Clarence Thomas, and that neurosurgeon and stuff. I mean, and they're dark, they're darker than I am, and
Yeah.
their
The amount of
mental,
melon your skin ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
they I don't think, but here again, and I always mess up with the names, and I know we were talking about this earlier. The one woman from the NAACP, and she
Rachel
was,
Dolezal. Yeah.
yes, and she had ended up saying, she went on the not the View, one of the talk shows in the morning. I forgot which one it was, but she said, identify as black, identify as African American. She started tanning her skin, and she started kinking up her hair, and she's like, even though I have two white parents, I am this. So it kind of takes you back to what Alice just said, in reference to perception and how people view. For me personally, um, I honestly don't care what people identify, as long as you're not bothering me. You have the same type of political things to
Well,
help me.
also, communities got to have the ability to when Elizabeth Warren, when that whole thing came out and Trump was calling her Pocahontas and
Oh
all that,
yeah, for her too.
leader of the Navajo Nation, he came out. He said, "We say who is a Navajo and who is not a Navajo, and we use multifaceted layers or whatever in order to determine
Right.
this. It could be biological. It could be because you could be biologically a Navajo and you've never been connected to the Navajo people or any of the
Right.
reservations or
The actual
anything.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So you know we get to make that decision at the end of the day, us as a group, whether or not we choose that, we want to let you in. Somebody, oh, that's gatekeeping with it. Yes, it is. And it's necessary. For the reasons that, hey, we're competing. This is a competition. It's limited
Let me get
resources,
to those.
resources, and people are going at it.
Let me get to those comments real quick.
So Candace said this needs to be a multi-part discussion. So much to unpack, so little time. Mira said, I second that. So now, funny, this comment kind of reminds me of what you were saying about Rachel Dolezal, and this is the flip side to that coin, right? So I completely agree that knowing who we are is important. However, someone else shouldn't have to question what we identify as, including on applications or some documents, right? So just putting a pin in that for just a moment. Oh, HP said I'm making some great points. Thank you. But no, so going back to questioning who we identify. If you have an outright white person that's having some kind of identity crisis, both their parents were like, "We don't know what she's talking about." That there's something kind of wrong with that. And I know we've talked about it before with gender issues and things like that. You do not get to just pick what you identify as, right? However, if I'm telling you that, I'm black and I have black in my family and I've got family photos and albums and my father's here and my, you know what I mean, and everything else, nobody, I mean, especially Donald Trump, should not be sitting here telling you that you just became black, right?
Well,
That's and I'll take it a step further than that, right? When you look at his running mate, JD Vance, right? His children right now, his wife is, if I'm not mistaken, Indian, like from India, right? He's white, calls himself a hillbilly. His children, at this point, based on his running mate, have to decide right now if they're going to be white or if they're going to be Indian. Because if at some point in their life they ever claim that they're Indian, you have somebody that's going to go, when did you become Indian? Right? If
Yeah.
they claim that they're white later, then when did they become white? And this is what his person, this is his, he's sidekick to this guy. He's Robin to that Batman, right? And so you have to think his children at some point are going to be questioned, or heaven forbid they slip up some day, and they're at a restaurant. They're like, oh my God, this tastes just like the curry my mother makes. Right. And they're like, what are you saying? You're Indian now because they have blue eyes? And so did they just become Indian? They're not. They don't become anything. You are what you are and who you are.
Well, I
And
think where you have a lot of African Americans, making a fuss right now is, so take for example, Ivy League schools, right?
uh-huh.
So Ivy League schools have their acceptance rates, we can break it down by race. It's very easily to understand who
Mhm.
Harvard has accepted. So when Harvard say, oh, well, last year we accepted X amount of black people,
Mhm.
and we find out that, those people, of those people, let's say it's 100, and we found out of those, it was actually one African American, and the 99 was from, Haiti or Nigeria, et cetera. Which honestly, this is the case right now. Like when
That is
you
true.
these most prestigious things, when they're talking about their black rates, it's
You're talking about other culture, yeah,
yeah,
um,
in
places.
which
Well,
you could be
right.
talking about African American versus a Nigerian, who parents was, Nigerian diplomats or something, which is not really apples to oranges to say, well, you African Americans shouldn't be upset about that because a person of African ancestry got the position, so that should be okay. But what is happening is the competition of capitalism is becoming, okay, well, do we just allow or do we assist all these various? Okay, let's say we say, okay, these people, we're not going to create any resistance or whatever. We're going to say, yes, all these people can come or whatever. Well, what's to happen to the current people? When Twyla's on Breakfast Club and they're asking her about her race, and that's becoming a whole controversy,
Oh yeah.
is because you're seeing the African. This isn't 1995 as far as African American artists. The idea that you're going to get the next Nas from Queensbridge or something like that is, and look, I get it. You're going to have to compete internationally. African Americans, you're going to have to compete internationally.
Mhm.
That's just the fact of it. But at the same time, do competing internationally means that you're supposed to, oh well, Twyla is black, so we should support her as well? Or am I looking to more so support my African American artists? This is where when you talk about, well, where's this stuff coming from? Where's this? This is what the other side is saying in the calculus that's being done. This is the complexity of the world we're living in today.
I mean, but I find
Let
that
me
to
just
be. Go ahead.
okay. Let me just go ahead. Right here, we have Candace.
It's he was talking about.
We're
He
not
said we
claiming
versus
Candace.
not Candace. Right. Alice said, aren't some of these people just dealing with a level of self hate though?
Can I answer? I want to talk about that one real quick. And also including what Charles has been talking about. You know, at the end of the day, it does boil down to self love, knowing yourself, caring enough to implement. Because right now, Charles will say, "Hey, kid, let me send you that book over here so you can learn about this." And then he's like, "Wait, I sent you the book. You ain't changed nothing. Oh, it's so busy. I got this going on. Whatever, whatever." I think that sometimes we get used to certain things, and like you, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Majority of people are systemized to a degree in different aspects of whatever we're talking about.
Hmm.
And when it comes to identifying with certain things, we do pick and choose on when we do certain things. Right now, if I'm talking to you privately, I'm using slang, I'm comfortable, this, that, and the third. When I'm on a job interview, my very pleasant, and I'm pronunciating my words and I'm articulating and I'm bubbly and everything is awesome and da 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 da. And you have, why are
Hmm.
you acting white? What does that even mean? That's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. So we have so many different things going on, I feel, within the culture. I would ask you, Charles, this because, of course, from what the last comment said, it should be a part two.
Part two,
Um,
yes.
but, but my last question for you, Charles, and then we'll get to Cash, and then Liz, you can have the last word. Would be not the adults, not the adults, because a lot of times when you deal with adults, you got to kind of you have to break it in and it becomes habit, 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 habit. For the youth who is still impressionable, from the youth who don't, I don't have time to read a book. Is this on TikTok? What you talking about, Charles? I see Megan Thee Stallion. She was over there twerking it real quick, representing for Harris. Can she put that in a song? How do we get the youth to recognize? Wait a second. Don't label me, society, what you want me to be labeled. How do I break this chain, this cycle? Because clearly the parents, clearly the grandparents, um, they're kind of set in their ways and how they talk. So how would you get your message in reference to knowing yourself, changing the way you speak, and identifying? How can you relate that to younger people?
Well, it's there's a movie with Denzel Washington, and he's quoted in the movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but basically he said it's the small things. It's the small things that get you caught, right? And so in this case right here, for any transformation to be done, whether it's on the individual level or whether it's a group level, it starts with the small things. So even the simple wording of, like, what you refer to yourself as, okay, is important. Okay, if I want to transform myself to be a confident person, I can't sit there and say, hey, dumbass. Okay, I have to sit there and say, hey, I'm smart, I'm intelligent. I may not get this right now, but I'll be able to get it in the future if I keep working at it. Okay, people like to call it positive affirmations or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but these small things is what you have to do in order to transform any group. Okay, transforming yourself as a person is a hard task, let alone trying to transform an entire population. Okay? People who have done social engineering, they generally get, when they do social engineering on a level of it causes untold atrocities. From the revolution in China with Mao, okay, to Stalin, to even what was done to African Americans here in this country. All that is the product of social engineering, which means this was constructed, this was deliberately manipulated, this was deliberately embedded onto you, whatever, and it continues on to this day. So it started here in this country at the conclusion of Bacon's Rebellion, and it's going on even now as we speak. So for the youth, as if you as a parent, if you feel that you want your child to transform, you have to exert control, which means those that social media needs to be fucking shut the hell off. Okay, the areas where your child is going to be negatively influenced, okay, you need to nip that shit in the butt. That's what you have to, and as a parent, you have to do that. You have to understand you're not your child's friend. You are the parent, okay? And you create the direction that your child is going to go. Okay. Now, for those of us, whatever, who don't have that willpower to to formulate a structure around their children or even around themselves. Okay, as we say, that some of us, whatever, will be able to adapt and move on, and some of us get left looking behind.
And thanks for that, Charles. And definitely when we continue this conversation down the road,
Have to continue the conversation.
we have to hit him up. So, Cash, my last question for you is, you mentioned a good thing about competition, and I remember in a previous conversation that we were having on the podcast, a comment had came in, and it was like, why are we always talking about what's in it for me? As a society, as a whole, we should be looking as a whole. Why is it, oh, and the black people are getting this, and the age, like, can you just emphasize a little bit more why that is so important that we end up, I guess saying, hey, we want this as this culture, and can you kind of emphasize on that topic about why it's very important to be in the competition? Because I really feel when it comes to topics, we're not even invited to the table per se. We're kind of, you think about big issues in the world. Let's think about big issues in the world and who has the nuclear bombs and who's doing this and who's that. You don't even hear about Africa. You hear about India, you hear about this one, but Africa's like off on the sideline. Like, what they over there talking about? Not saying they don't got certain things, but we just, and like I said, and for African Americans in America, we just kind of on the subculture. We on the other level. Can you elaborate a little bit about that before we leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the part that's important to figure out, because that is where you are getting a lot of the frustration from, is the feeling of competition. And you can't tell people they're not in competition. Oh, it's not going to work. Like, people can see right there what's in front of their face. It's hard to convince people that, you know, okay, you're not in competition with these people. And then, but you're looking and seeing, them moving and progressing and prospering. And you're like, wait a minute, but I feel like I'm in competition with these people. And in America with capitalism, honestly, we're all in competition with each other. When you go to fill out a job application, it could be you versus your neighbor. Who knows? That's just, now look, it don't that doesn't mean it has to come to knife fighting or anything like that. It just is what it is. And I think that if we accept it on that premise and come to it as adults, respectfully, I think that the various groups can then come together in a true spirit of, what, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we're trying to do. And where we can collaborate, we can come together in true, collaboration, versus it just being, 100%, seeing, everyone, as a threat. Because that's how some people are feeling. It's like when you talk about the Kamala thing, when Trump brings it up, what he's saying is she's just faking. She's just cosplaying in order to she needs you guys, are about 40 million people or whatever. She needs your numbers, and she just wants to get your numbers, and then she's gonna move on with her own personal agenda. Where they were, talking with some of these singers and stuff, the thing with Twyla or with Drake, hey, these people are just here to they need your support as a entry to what they want and what they need, but it's not gonna be anything in it long term for you guys, as a group. And so I think if, each group or whatever, look, if you want specific things or support in certain areas, and even outside of this, isn't even just with Black people. You talk about the Democrat Party in particular, the whole entire coalition almost fell apart under Biden. That's what was happening. The entire coalition. When they said that, oh, Spanish people was going to come into the country and it was going to be a browning of America and everybody was just going to get along and it was just going to happen seamlessly, it did not. It did not. And what ended up happening, you had these white employers who we have, or it seems to Black people that they have this hiring preference, let's say in construction where you have all these Spanish people that they're hiring or whatever. So yeah, people feel like food is being taken off their plate. But I would say this: I'm not someone who, you know, oh well, African Americans need to be patted, and everybody need to make a way for us. We were here first and we did this. Nah, Haitian American women right now are making a hard push in nursing, bachelors of nursing. African American women, very small percentage of the population, make up more than 1/3 of CNAs. That's not Haitian women's fault. If they're making that collective decision that's what they're going to do and they're going to move forward on that. If you leaving that food out there on your plate, if you ain't finishing your own the stuff that you do got, what you can do, the strides that you can make, you can't be mad at other people because they're willing to go that extra length.
Before we go to last words with Liz, just read the last comment.
Let's see, we've got Pam. And so, who I think is new to the comment section. So, welcome to the comments, Pam. It says, Missy, we are not Negro, colored, Black, African American. We are Americans, descendants of slaves.
And on that note, I
On
will.
that note, I
I will.
can absolutely start here. I'm going to try to button this all up all at once, right? So it's funny because, first of all Black people are not descendants of slaves. Not everybody left Africa, and not everybody coming from Africa or of African descent or of Black descent came from slavery. Very recently, earlier this year, it was funny because somebody asked my husband how he got his last name, and it's McMaster, right? And he said, I don't know, slavery. And his father was in the room. And when I tell you, he raised right up and corrected him. He said, it is not from slavery. Actually, I want to say it was his grandmother that, in fact, fell in love with a white man, a Scottish man, or something like that, and willingly, happily married him and had her family. That is not rape, and it is not slavery. And he was very quick to call it out. And this is a person that is very proud of his Blackness. I'm using the term lightly, right? Now he's very proud of that, but he will also tell you it was not rape and it was not slavery, and do not say that in that instant, right? People that just got here, I have friends from Africa. They are not descendants of slaves. They are Black, and their children were born in America, which makes them Black Americans, but they are not. It's not one monolith. It's not a collective, right? We mentioned Idris Elba earlier. I always pick on him because he's the easiest French Englishman, you know
Oh,
what I mean,
he's
and so
not
on.
Hebrew.
Another person that his family moved from Africa to Europe, and that is where he was born and raised. He is not a descendant of a slave. They willingly moved. People move, right? And there's a million different ways that Black people have gotten across the globe, or descendants of Africa have gotten across the globe, right? But it's not necessarily slavery. I know Charles mentioned earlier that it was rape. It was not necessarily rape, right?
No, no. What I meant was people who are African American who say that they are descended from slaves. That's the only group that I'm pertaining to, and that's
Okay,
what.
got it. And appreciate the clarification. But
Right.
another thing is, and another thing that we kind of mentioned earlier on is that I mentioned the hurt that people feel when descendants of Africa, decide not to claim that, right? There is a hurt that goes with that, because if you ask a child, or you ask just a general person of any background what's beautiful or what type of doll they want the doll with the straight hair and the thin figure and the everything else, right? It takes time to grow into loving who we are and everything else because of all those social constructs. We've decided, somebody a long time ago decided that beauty is defined by European standards and not by any other standards. So if your nose is too big, and I mean, tell me you guys don't remember this from back in the day. I hope, thankfully, our generation has gotten away from it. But when I was coming up, they would tell you to pinch the baby's nose to try to get it to be straighter. I mean, these are things, you're 6 years old and they teaching you how to work a hot iron and things like that. There is something to that we are like trying to break from that. And so to have somebody at the highest levels, that we're proud of, that we're like, oh my God, look at that Black man on the golf course, or look at that Black girl with that medal. And for them to turn around and say, I ain't Black, I don't know what you're talking about. There is a level of hurt that goes with that. And that doesn't have to do with you being weak. It has to do with the
Yes,
fact
it
that you
does.
found somebody. It
Oh
does
yeah.
not. You found somebody that you can point to as an additional role model for your children, that, see, I told you it's beautiful to be Black. See, I told you you don't have to be rail thin or whatever it is in order to be, beautiful or whatever. And it kind of negates a lot of what we're going
That's
out of
very
our way to learn and relearn about ourselves, right?
I,
And
go ahead, go ahead.
so, and then because I'm, like I said, I'm kind of circling around to
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So, and I know that Cash also brought up that, to some extent, and then, I might be overusing the word hurtful tonight, so forgive me for that. I need a thesaurus. But, to say that you see somebody that's Haitian getting what did Trump call them? Black jobs, right? Or Jamaican, or from Africa that got into Harvard, and so on and so forth. I do honestly feel that we have to figure out how to come together as a collective. When Donald Trump referred to Kamala Harris becoming Black, he was not only throwing out a dog whistle to white people to remind her of her color, of her being colored, if you would, but he was also intentionally and successfully, once again, doing what he could to divide the Black vote, because all of a sudden now you're having conversations in our community that he introduced to the community about how Black she is and how much are we going to accept that she's Black, and now you got other Black people saying that she's not Black, and so on and so forth. He won again because we let him win again, right? So he decided that she just became Black, and here we are talking about whether or not she is Black, How black is she? What kind of black is she? Are we even black? Let's not use the word black. We're talking about everything except for the issues again, because the goal is always to divide and conquer, and that'll never ever change. I know
And
we're
that goes in, and that goes inside with this last comment here. I think America just needs to celebrate other cultures, races, religions, etc., the way that other countries do. And I want to say this one last thing. Like I said, this
Mhm.
conversation can go on and on and on, and there's so
On
much
and
to
on.
dig into. I want to
Yes.
say, based on what everything that's going on, this is another reason why it's very hard to talk about reparations, because it's like, okay, I wasn't a slave, I moved over here, but my so and so was, and who gets what, and okay, I don't go to America for the reparations, I go to England, but I live, so it's so, so many different things. And then in the same breath, we're the only people, and this is for everyone. I'm including everybody that have a brown skin to them, that have so many different viewpoints on the topic. And unfortunately, when the outside world, it's kind of like when you have your parents say, "Don't be fighting in public." We be fighting in public and everything. We can't
All
get this
the
shit together.
time. Every
Again. We
time.
can't, like, right. Okay, the camera's about to be on. Okay, everybody in sync and one. No, no, no. I'm like, no, you a crazy bitch. No, you an asshole. You a this. And it's like, wow. Now I'm not disagreeing with anybody's viewpoints, and I'm saying you're correct or you're right. I'm just saying that it's so divisive. You go to any other culture and they're on the one. They say, hey, we have some
Mhm.
demands, Mr. President, Mrs. Madam President. This is what it is. And the whole group collectively goes. You know one thing?
Immediately. No questions.
I lived in the hood growing up, and I would see Spanish people. Let's just say somebody was getting jumped.
Hmm.
Little Juan was getting jumped on the block. All
Hmm.
the abuelas, everybody coming out. They throwing brooms. They do. I mean, the whole block is coming to this little Spanish boy's to his
Hmm.
rescue. Even if they don't even know if he was guilty or not.
Nope.
But when it came to little Leroy getting jumped, that beat
That's
that
his mama's
nigga's ass,
problem.
I swear to God. And it's like, what the hell? He
But that's
down there.
because that goes to the question: what does being black get you these days?
Well, clearly it gets a whole bunch of arguing and a conversation on unfiltered and intentional. But we're gonna basically wrap this up. Like I said, this year is a wild year. Going into the
More to
election.
come.
We're gonna have so many things to talk about, so many things that are happening. I mean, I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't know if I'm coming or going, but I appreciate you, Charles, Cash, Liz,
Yeah.
once again for tuning in, chiming in, educating us, giving your viewpoints, and also the audience.
Hmm.
You guys, I loved hearing, just your opinions, because at the end of the day, you may want to talk about it, but you can't talk about it with your coworker because she's looking at you funny and all types of other stuff going on. But I love y'all. Like and subscribe. Thank
Yes.
you guys.